Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is G, and we're going to talk about the first eclipse of 2023. So this is just going to be a first glance, and I'm going to pull the chart up and I'm going to mark it up, and hopefully I do it in a way that is easily digestible for all involved. So you're going to have the date, you're going to have the degrees, and we're going to start with just the basics. We'll talk about the elements, we'll talk about maybe some of the angles, but we'll talk about what sort of an eclipse it is, north node, south node, beginnings, endings, material, non-tangible, emotional. Like we'll kind of take a look at all those things. And then we'll do another video where we're doing more of a deep dive. Okay. And as usual, if you got any questions, please do not hesitate. Put your stuff below in the comment section, and I will help you out in any way I can. The first thing you're going to be looking for are the degrees of the eclipse. Okay. And so I'm going to point these out to you, and we're going to see them together. And remember, follow the cursor, follow my markings. Don't worry about all the other crazy stuff that all the details my brain insists on needing to see. All right, so here we go. I'm going to mark this up. I think I'm using black first of all. So, yep, there's that number 8. Let's go find the date. Left-hand side, April 19th. April 19th. This is your new moon solar eclipse. So when someone says it's a solar eclipse, for those of you who've been studying astrology for a little bit of time, you know that means that the sun and the moon are together. And we know that when the sun and the moon are together, meaning they match the same degrees and they're in the same sign, that means we have a new moon. So that's where we're getting the new moon piece. And it might be more approachable, a little bit easier to be like, oh, it's a new moon. Why don't they just say new moon? Well, because it is more than just a new moon. And so we're going to talk about that here. Okay. So right there, I drew an arrow where you see the sun. Yep, that's the circle. The sun is the circle with the dot in the middle. Yeah. And then we've got the moon right next to it. Right. And so they're both at 29 degrees and they're in the sign of Aries. You see that? 29 degrees and 50 minutes. It's a new moon. So we know that when we have new moons, it's a powerful time to set intentions. So the dates and the time matter for those of you who use the energy in that way, right? Who are, some would call you a co-creator, a place and time to set your focus. So April 19th, 2023 at 11:12 p.m. This is a nighttime, right? 11:12 p.m. Actually, hold on a second. Something strange on this software. It says 11:12:30 p.m. Let me get back to you on which hour it is, but that would be central time zone because that's the time zone that I am in. And you can always look below the video. I have all the details and the degrees and the times below the videos. If there's ever any confusion or ambiguity or, things that need to be clarified in a video, just go below the video and I'll have more details there for you. Okay. To clarify, 29 degrees, folks, 29:50. So in your mind, if you're listening and you've been following for a little bit of time, I'm going to say that that's a critical degree. And in essence, this is a 30-degree full moon. I'm sorry, a 30-degree new moon, right? So it's in the sign of Aries, and that is fire. Aries is fire. Aries is cardinal fire. So let's back up. All right, let's just back up and we'll talk about Aries being fire sign. Fire sign, right? Aries is right here, okay? That's the symbol for Aries right there. And then when Aries grows up and gets to be bigger, it matures, it turns into Leo energy. You see that? It turns into Leo because that's what evolutionary astrology is. And that's what we're doing as human beings. We're evolving. That whether we like it or not, that's what we're doing here. We turn into our Leo energy. So Aries is when you're born. Yeah, it's when you're a baby. When you pop out of the mom's womb, it's Arian energy. Yep. And that's why Aries is the house number 1. It's the first house, and it's what's really on the ascendant. The ascendant, the left-hand eastern side of the chart is the ascendant. It's the cusp line for the first house. Okay, so if anybody's confused, that's what that is. So on this chart, as an example, I would say that 9 degrees and 3 minutes is the ascendant. That's the degrees of the ascendant, and this would be in Leo energy. And this is just an example chart, okay? And yes, that same degrees is what starts off the house of number 1. You see how they've got the houses there, right? Okay. And then when Leo grows up, right? It gets a little bit bigger, lives a little longer, leaves the household because this energy, you're still in the household, you're still living with mom and dad, right? But then Leo energy grows up, it strikes out into the world and it travels. And it usually goes on a journey of some sort, right? And that is Sagittarius energy. I'm going on the journey. I go away to school. That's Sagittarius energy. I go to university. That is Sagittarius energy. Yeah. And we start to create our own philosophies on life, and they're separate from when we lived with mom and dad. It's not saying we're saying screw you. We're just developing our own because we're meeting different people, we're having different experiences, we're immersing ourselves in different cultures. So Aries is a very um youthful energy, and some refer to childlike, okay? Because yeah, it's kind of like what we would say the youngster of the zodiac. Yeah, okay? So at 30 degrees of Aries, all right, it's a more mature degree because it's at 30 degrees. And Aries in itself, because it rules the first house, okay, not to be confused, just because Leo's there, remember that's just an example chart, but Aries is the same as first house energy, okay? So it's our physical bodies, the appearance of our body. Somebody meets you for the very first time, and it's that very first impression they get based on their eyes. And it could be based on their ears and their smells and literally when they either shake your hand or you don't offer your hand, like all those cues, all those things, the way you're dressed, the car you pull up in or don't pull up in, or whether you just, you know what I'm saying? Like all those visual things, all those physical things have meaning. Now, does that mean it says everything about you? No, it's just a first impression. So think about the book, the cover of a book. You look at the cover on the book or remember when we used to rent movies, you used to look at that cover and be like, "Oh, this looks good." And how many books or how many movies did you start to read or watch and you're like, "Oh, I can't make it through the rest of this. I can't do it," right? It can be deceiving, and it's not purposefully deceiving, it's just what it is. You made an assumption based on certain physical, material, tangible things that jumped out at you, that caught your eye, right? So Aries is very physical, and so people with Arian energy are very physical people normally. Yeah, if they have a lot of Arian energy, they're go-getters, physical go-getters. You know, they're going to be first at something. They're going to be in a hurry. Some would say they're the Marines. They are the military. Somebody who's a soldier. So this would be anybody who can carry a weapon. So whether you're officially part of the police force or military or not. So yes, it can be those who literally work in the police department and physical people. Yeah, these are people who are going to their approach in life is very hands-on, very physical. You know those people, right? You might be one of them. Nothing wrong with that. But yeah, they're out there. They go out there to be first. It's almost like a race with Arian energy. There's a lot of impatience with Arian energy. And so Arian energy can also be like these sporadic bursts of energy. I remember for myself for a long time, I would have days where it would be like I felt like I was just dragging, and I'd be like, "Oh my gosh." And then there'd be other like a half of a day where I would feel so full of energy and I would be like, "God, why can't I feel like this all the time?" I do have quite a few planets in Aries and yeah, it's definitely sporadic energy. It's made, if you think about like the adrenals are not meant to be on 10 and to be, the fight or flight thing all the time. No, they're more like an emergency thing. It's that, when the going gets tough and the tough have to get going type of thing. And all of a sudden something happens and it could be a shock, it could be a surprise, but it requires action on your part. And you're just like, I don't know how I did that. I don't know where that came from. You had a sudden burst of energy. A lot of times it can be that Arian energy that just stands up and fights and you don't know where it comes from because that's Aries. It's aggressive. It's assertive, right? And if it's not aware of itself, it can be overly assertive. It can get dangerous, right? Because we know this, because yeah, for the last months of 2022 and the first 4 months, first 3, 4 months of 2023, Mars has been out of bounds, right? Yeah. And so we're still in Mars being out of bounds right now as I'm doing this recording in January. This Mars is actually in the sign of Gemini right now at like 11, 12 degrees right here, and it's out of bounds. And it means being out of bounds means it's just got the bursts of energy are more sustained and it's more aggressive than usual. It can be extreme. Okay. So I brought that up. I know I'm like trying not to talk about Mars, but I brought that up because Mars rules the sign of Aries energy. Okay. And the eclipse is in Aries at 2950, a critical degree. Arian energy is important. And understanding what Aries energy represents, physical body, racing almost, wanting to be first, race car drivers, anybody who's in a race of any sort is typically going to have that Arian energy. And so we would say like the race horse, right? The first one that's out of the gate, Arian energy. And that's why we say the Marines. And the other thing to know with this eclipse is that look how much there is in Aries. There's white moon Lilith, Chiron, Jupiter, and Jupiter's conjunct Eris, by the way. Eris is like Mars's sister. Yeah, right? Interesting. And then we have Vulcan there. And then we have Estrella there. Then we have the moon. Like, look at when you have this many planets in a sign, when you have this many objects, this many things, this many luminaries, remember, don't forget, it takes on a spiritual aspect. When you have this many things in one sign, there is a very high percentage of time where people will take the high road, where it won't be as aggressive and hurtful and physical. It'll take the more altruistic spiritual role. And so this is a good promise for this eclipse, right? Because it's a solar eclipse, a new moon solar eclipse, new moon meaning it's a new beginning, and we're setting our intentions. And solar, and the piece about the eclipse part, what makes this eclipse an eclipse is because it is near a node, and it is near the north node. So this is a north node solar eclipse, and that node is in Taurus. The node is all about our future and where we're headed, and it's our values because it's in Taurus. So it's the value of our values, the future of our values, the future of our money, right? And yeah, you see Mercury, you see Uranus, yeah, you see Juno. There's a lot to talk about. So we're going to save that for part 2. All right. But so for right now in this video, this was to go over the sign of Aries to understand its basic meanings. It's fire energy. It's action orientated, fiery, right? Put up your dukes type of thing, ready to go at any moment. Think of a rocket, sporadic bursts of energy. We have a lot of planets in it, so hopefully it'll take on a more meaningful, a more spiritual approach, meaning hopefully it'll think before it acts, because Aries and Mars energy, like they don't think, they act before thinking, right? They're impatient, they act, they just, yeah, they strike out, they just go. So Aries energy, this eclipse at a critical degree, right? We'll save that bit too. We'll talk about that later. It's about the body. And with Aries, it is the freedom of my body, the actions, the freedoms that I want to take with my body. Like, this is my body, not yours, right? And so we think of all the my body, my choice. And there's a whole plethora of other issues that people all around the world are having about my body, my choice. It's not so much always going to be feminine, right? There's a whole lot of other individuals, a whole lot of other beings who feel like they have the right to their body and to choose what they want to do with their body. So this is a new moon, new beginning, solar eclipse, which means tangible. Normally when it's a new moon, right? It's the sun and the moon. We should expect it's something tangible, something material, like we'll physically be able to see something. That's typically what it's going to mean. We will pick up with a part 2 to dive into the rest. And if you are still with me, bless your soul. Bye-bye. Below the video, I'll have all the degrees for those of you who like to pay attention to the degrees in your chart. Again, if you don't know and you want to know, just comment below.